Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today from McFarlane Toys, in their DC Multiverse line of action figures, we are featuring Aquaman, as seen in the Justice League 2021 movie. Alright, so this version of Aquaman is portrayed by actor Jason Momoa. You might recognize him from like Stargate or Game of Thrones as Khal Drogo. This figure is one I kind of like held off on buying him since day one, just because I cannot stand the head sculpt on this figure. It sounds like I don't know what it is. There's something about this figure that it like offends me every time I see it in the stores, just because it's such a beautiful figure. And the entire line of action figures from the Justice League movie, they all look beautiful. But then when you come to this one, it's kind of like, I don't know, there was something very, very lost in the sculpt of his face. We've seen this before with other McFarlane figures. For example, there's the John Cena Peacemaker figure. There's two versions of that figure. There's the one with Peacemaker with his helmet and one without. The figure without the helmet looks nothing like actor and pro wrestler John Cena. And it's kind of surprising because some of the figures, especially the ones that are based off of actors, they get the likeness spot on. Like the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman looks fantastic. But some of their stuff is just always off. Like this looks very off. The Henry Cavill Witcher figures, they're kind of wonky looking. So, you know, this is the figure that I kind of blame for me not collecting the Justice League figures when they first came out. But I kind of like changed my tune over the last few months, because I was just gradually buying these figures, you know, whenever I saw them available. Because I'd find these at like secondhand shops for like discounted prices. And then it got to the point where I was just missing two figures. So I caved in and finally got this guy. So we're going to check him out. I don't want to sound too negative. I mean, I do think it's an amazing looking figure. But man, that head sculpt, it's just so painful to look at. And I probably sound crazy, but I don't know. I guess I am. Alright, so this figure portrays Jason Momoa in this outfit from the Justice League film. You'll remember this is kind of like his body armor that he wears. Alright, so we get the trading card, and we also get the display base. Okay, so I'm going to quit complaining about the likeness and the head sculpt. You know, for now, I'm just going to say it's terrible, I don't like it, and I'm just going to try to focus on the positives of the action figure. As I'm looking at this figure in the tray, I think this is like one of the more detailed action figures that McFarlane has given us. Not only because of the sculpting, but in the paint application alone, it's amazing. Like his body armor is kind of like a very like dirty, like oxidized green. I think that's how I'd best describe it. And then like the upper elements of the body armor, or like the detailing and the decorative elements, it's almost kind of like dry brushed with like a brass or copper finish. So it really takes on that appearance of like ancient armor. It looks like something that's been, I don't know, that's very weathered and very just like distressed. The way they applied all the paint to the body armor, it really accents the details. All the recesses seem deeper than they should. All the elevated elements seem like they're a lot higher than they should be. And some of the paint application, it's like so fine lined, especially like in the trim on the armor here. So this is, for me, I think one of the best paint applications done on a McFarlane figure. You know, many times you get something very basic like this. You know, they're just relying on the colors of the plastic, you know, to convey the, you know, the color scheme of the character. But here it really takes it to like another level. There aren't too many McFarlane figures that are executed with this kind of paint style. And I really applaud McFarlane for that. It looks great, and I really wish we got more, characters in this vein, with a similar design or aesthetic and this kind of like level of detailing when it comes to the paint. It looks really, really well done. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, as impressive as this guy looks, you look at his trident or scepter here, and it's very generic, very plain looking. It doesn't look as amazing as this like does right here. All right, so enough about that. Let's take this out. I'm curious about this trident here because I recently reviewed the Ocean Master figure, and he kind of came with like a similar weapon, and I'm wondering if this is made of like a soft material like that one, because the Ocean Master, his spear was very flimsy, and this one's a little bit flimsy also, but it's not as soft as the Ocean Master one. This one's a little bit more rigid, which I can appreciate. The detailing is nice. You have nice pointed tips, some beautiful detail toward the bottom of the handle, and it's not as flexible as the Ocean Master one. So the nice thing is it's not going to snap in half because it's made of a rubbery plastic, but at the same time it's not going to droop. So I think this material is pretty decent. Alright, so we have the Jason Momoa Aquaman as seen in the Zack Snyder Justice League live-action film. Aquaman appeared previously in Batman vs. Superman, also done by Zack Snyder. And I'm really loving this armor. It has such a... I don't know, if you're like a tactile kind of person, you just run your fingers along the body armor, you can kind of feel all the crazy details. And then when you look at it, it's just even more impressive. Like, I can't emphasize enough how well done the paint application is on here. It might look a little bit blotchy and spotty in some areas, but, I think that randomness really emphasizes and kind of like accents the realism in this. Nice boots, look at that. Really nice decorative elements. Really, really clean sculpting. You're getting a lot of nice, sharp, high-definition edges. And even on like the shoulder pauldrons here, it's really well done. These are a softer material, and it looks like they're attached underneath the shoulder above the ball joint. Alright, so let's take a look at this guy up close. Alright, I'm not going to talk about the likeness. We already know how I feel about that. But the sculpting's alright. The hair is really well done. Nice clean sculpting on the hair. His hair kind of feels maybe it's a little bit too short. For some reason, I think it's longer in the film. The paint application on the beard, it's kind of, as with the hair, it's not that, it's very plain. It's not as like over the top as the rest of them. The rest of them has this amazing amount of paint and texture to it. His neck is surprisingly very bare. There's not any musculature to it. Beautiful definition. I love how they, like how they cut the abdomen and ab crunch here to like conform with the shape of the body armor, so it kind of blends in a little bit better with the lower torso. You have the Atlantean crest on the belt. He has a very textured cod piece. Love the boots. Forearm gauntlets are awesome. The back looks nice. Yeah, very, very solid figure. I was about to say, I love everything about this figure, just bag the head, Throw a bag over his head, and it's a perfect figure. All right, so his head rotates. Does he look down? He looks down. Does he look up? No. It's unfortunate. It'd be nice if he could look up so you could get him in a swimming pose. But his head doesn't want to arch back. His arms rotate. And when they rotate up, you know, kind of lifts up the shoulder pads. Because this is like a soft material. He has that ball-socketed butterfly joint. And it seems like you're really getting your money's worth with this one. You know, the amount of range of motion's kind of increased a little. He has a bicep cut right there, so bicep swivel. Double pinned elbows. Wrist articulation. And it's nice that the cuff here covers over the ball joint. Because on many McFarlane figures, the ball joint's kind of exposed and it's very unsightly. Cut below the chest line and swivels. Legs kick up about there. Legs, I don't know, almost full splits. Double pinned knees. Ankle articulation and toe articulation. Now let's get his trident in hand, see what it looks like. His fingers are really stiff, so this might be an issue here. Yeah, I don't want to like stress out the fingers or crack the paint job on them, so I might not be able to put the scepter in his hand because his fingers are really tight. They're not as soft as other McFarlane figures. In terms of height, this guy looks a little bit taller than some of the other figures in the line. He comes in at almost 8 inches. That's crazy. Here's an older... I know this guy appears in a lot of videos lately, but still a McFarlane figure I have on my desk right now. Size comparison. Wow, this guy is bigger than the older figures. And if you've seen my review on the Justice League Zack Snyder, Ben Affleck Batman figure, you'll remember that that's a very small figure. That figure only comes up to, like, I think Batman's brow. So you're looking at a very tall figure here. Now that just might be, you know, because Jason Momoa was a big guy to begin with. But yeah, this is very, very tall for a McFarlane figure. Outside of the Mega Deluxe boxed figures, of course. Alright, so I know that I complained like for 5 minutes about the likeness of the figure. And right now I'm going to take out some other Aquaman figures, you know, so we can do a comparison. So these are also from, I think these are from the Justice League movie or from Batman vs. Superman. I can't remember. But these are from Mattel also. Oh no, these are from Mattel. These are not McFarlane. So we have the Mattel budget Aquaman figure. Also done kind of in the likeness of Jason Momoa. I think I might have been looking at this figure like with rose-tinted glasses because the face sculpt hasn't aged well. I think maybe like 6 or 7 years ago when this figure first came out, maybe back then I thought this thing was amazing looking, but looking at it now, not so much. This came out back in 2015, and the head sculpt, yeah, it hasn't aged well. Yeah, I think maybe back then, maybe I thought this was like spot on, looked like Jason Momoa, but if you look at it, it looks more like John Travolta from Battlefield Earth. The tattoo work here is really well done, and there's a nice texture on his pants as well. It's a great figure for a budget figure. You know, Mattel, when they had the DC license, they always offered alternatives. You know, besides buying the expensive DC Classics, DC Universe figures for like $20, they offered these smaller scaled action figures, which were nicely articulated, well detailed for like maybe like $9. And this is a decent figure. And moving along, we come to this guy. I think this was a priced higher. This was, I think from their standard DC Classics or maybe Movie Masters line. Again, I think this might have been taken from the Batman vs. Superman film. And we have Aquaman, again, Jason Momoa. And I think looking back at this now, the likeness is alright. The flesh tone, it seems like it's too pale. It looks more like comic book writer Alan Moore than it does Jason Momoa, if you happen to know who Alan Moore is. Again, maybe back in the day I thought this looked like Jason Momoa. Maybe Jason Momoa for the most part's never had a history of having like spot on looking action figures. I do not have any of the Aquaman figures on me right now from the standalone films. Those are in a box somewhere. But for the most part, I think this looks like Aquaman. You know, it might not look like spot on like Jason Momoa, but I think it does a better looking job than this one right here. You know, these are supposed to be both the same actor. This one's chubbier in the face. I would love to see McFarlane tackle this armor. This is pretty cool. And again, even though this figure is maybe like 6 or 7 years old, when did this come out? Is there a date? No date on here. You know, even though this figure is like 6 or 7 years old, I think it's pretty decent still. I love the detailing, and it just looks great. It's crazy to think that I think I paid the same amount of money for this figure as I did this one. So, you know, action figure engineering, it's progressed leaps and bounds. And as you can see, it looks like they have a similar design on the boots as well. Same with the gauntlets. I'm almost tempted to do a head swap here, because I don't think this head's that much smaller than this one. So if you can imagine this body with this head, I think that'd make it wouldn't make a perfect figure, but I think it'd be a vast improvement, because I do think this head looks better than this one. Yeah, that looked kind of cool, actually, if I could do a head swap. This almost looks like, what's the dude's name? Voltan from the Flash Gordon movie. Brian Blessed, the actor. Alright, so we have these 3 different Aquaman figures. Oh, I got something else. Speaking of Jason Momoa, we have this. We have Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones. Now, this looks like Jason Momoa. This was produced by Funko. You might remember, like, back when Star Wars Black Series from Hasbro was, like, hitting its stride, maybe in, like, its 3rd year or 4th year. It was, like the new hotness. Funko started doing their own line of like 6-inch action figures with a similar box design. And even though these figures looked amazing, I think they had a lot of quality control issues. But it was just so cool. You know, I was kind of hoping that when McFarlane had the Game of Thrones license for like that 1 year, that they were going to do more than just the like 3 or 4 figures that they did, but they never did. But, you know, I can only imagine what McFarlane's Khal Drogo would have looked like, you know, if they actually held on to the license a little bit longer. But yeah, this is Jason Momoa. I think of all these figures, I think this one might look the closest to Jason Momoa. Of course, it's a slightly younger version of Jason Momoa, but in terms of the flesh tones and the facial sculpting and the overall expression in the face, in the eyes, I think this kind of captures Momoa's likeness better than any of these figures. Alright, so let's wrap this up. But before we do, on a scale of 1 to 10 for this McFarlane Justice League Aquaman, 8.5. I know I rag on the head all the time, but I think this is like one of the most beautiful figures that they've done in the Multiverse line. You know, the paint application alone just really wowed me. You know, it's like I said, just bag the head and the figure is like perfect. So, great figure. Do you need them in your collection? If you're a fan of the live action films, definitely a yes. And I'm hoping that in time they give us figures from the solo Aquaman movie and the upcoming Aquaman movie, because personally I'd love McFarlane to tackle this guy. You know, Black Manta. You know, I'm really hoping that in due time McFarlane, you know, gives us a Black Manta figure. So, you know, fingers crossed. Alright, so wrapping this up, once again, my name is Lou. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.